We have reached the final temple, and a lot goes down in it. How's everyone doing today, guys? My name's Tico's. This is Amphibia, episode 38B, The Third Temple. Man, yeah, this is a big episode. I mean, all the temple episodes are really big episodes, but when it comes to moving forward with the rest of the story, there's a lot to it. So interesting enough, well, I was kind of figuring this was gonna happen sooner or later with Sasha, Anne, and Marcy, was kind of like seeing more of their relationship together, and we get that in this. We get a flashback of how Marcy and Anne actually met Sasha, and turns out when they were really little kids, Marcy and Anne, they were best friends, and one day they were on the swing set and some older girls started picking on them, and then Sasha stepped up and tried to fight. She tried to fight, and she kept going at the girls, and the girls just kept avoiding her, and Sasha kept falling to the ground, but each and every time she got right back up and just kept going. And so I picked up rather quickly what the final temple was probably going to be, because, you know, one thing about it, because again, heart, brains, and strength. So this last temple had to be something about strength. And the other part of strength is the will to never quit. And that's seeing how Sasha, when she was a little kid, refused to give up on trying to protect and fight the bullies. It would make sense that there would be something in the temple that requires someone to not give up no matter how hard it is, just get back up, literally. So yeah, so kind of big shock in that flashback is, you know, obviously after all that went down, they become best friends, but Sasha seemed more vulnerable in that time when they were little kids. So of how she was able to gain control of all the situations after that, who knows, but I'm guessing we'll get that flashback sooner or later. But for now, the final temple is... It's interesting because for Anne, Marcy, and eventually Sasha, who does show up, and they kind of give a brief explanation as to how they found them, but I was like, are you sure? I feel like I could have gotten a little more information on that. But this final temple, it's in a volcano, basically, so it's already out of the gate a pretty hard temple, because as the frogs go in, it becomes so hot, they become so dehydrated, and like their skin like shrivels up, and they look like they're dead pretty much. And so already a frog, lizard, and toad, a frog, newt, and a toad are at a disadvantage in this temple. So it kind of shows how maybe you do need someone from another world to help conquer these temples. And at the same time, I was wondering, wait, how did they create these temples if they practically they could practically die in these? Like the first two I thought made sense, because, you know, the first temple was a temple built and it was more puzzles. The second one was guarded by this lady who had trials. The third one, it's just this volcano with monsters, and yeah, it's kind of weird. And even the way to get in was interesting, because they have to go to this side of a volcano. So they're at the side of the volcano, and they see this kind of gate, but it's blocked by, obviously, it's a giant rock door. And so, luckily for the family, they brought Frobo to it, and Frobo, literally, the only thing he does in this entire episode is lift the door open. So we have that, his contribution to the episode, basically, because he spends the rest of it outside. Yeah. Not that he could have possibly helped them out in the temple, I mean... Yeah, so, like I said, Sasha and Grime show up. I don't think they gave a good enough explanation as to how they found them. I mean, Sasha kind of throws in that they've been tracking them for the last couple of days, for the whole time, and I'm like, have you really? Again, I don't know. And how they introduce Sasha in this episode, or at least in the present, is when they go into when they enter the temple, and like I said, the frogs are completely dehydrated, thus making them look like they're nearly dead. They then encounter these lava centipedes, I believe, as they have to cross this path where lava's on both sides, and you just got these centipedes jumping out trying to eat anything in its path. And the only way to fight them is with these gigantic, heavy hammers that are really heavy. Like, Marcy, when she picks it up, literally is dragging it on the ground. And Anne, every time, like, she's able to lift it up a bit, but she has to really get, like, a momentum into the swing each time. But, of course, it seems like they're going to be fine, but then, obviously, the weight of the hammers literally pulls them down because they can't do everything so quickly, thus giving the centipedes an advantage. And just when it seems like they're gonna lose Marcy and the gang, Sasha comes in at the last second and slices the thing in half. This is kind of a gory episode, and, well, I mean, not entirely. I mean, you have Sasha slicing the centipede in half, and then you have Grime even doing some damage, even though he too is also very dehydrated. And he's like, I love the way they talk in this episode too. Like, Grime's like, even when I'm feeling nearly dead, I can still do it, or something like that. But obviously, Sasha is now there, and she plays it rather happy and a part of me kind of knew it was an act based on how quickly it was. Because remember, in the last episode, she was so hell-bent on getting, starting this rebellion and getting the hammer and wanting to take control again. So, and the only thing that could possibly have turned it around was Percy and Braddock leaving. But I didn't think that was enough. I thought that was very minor. Maybe it was like a nice little start point for Sasha and realizing the errors of her ways or something. But right now, it's not, because she tries to pretend that she's happy to see Marcy. That's the start. But she then apologizes to Anne, says the whole thing was her fault, that she shouldn't have done any of that, and that she wants to be better. She had time to think about everything, and she wants to become better because of it. So Anne forgives her. I say air quote because yeah, it gets interesting because what did I put there? Yeah. So, okay, so, sorry, took a minute to think about it, because I guess that Sasha apologizes to Anne and forgives her, I say in air quotes, because the rest of the episode she isn't very trusting of Sasha, because even though Sasha apologizes, it still was a rather sinister deed that she did, obviously. And as Anne points out later on, that it wasn't just what happened at Toad Tower, it's been something that's been going on for a while. So one simple apology isn't going to be enough to rekindle the friendship, and I like that, because, usually, and especially in, like, little kid shows, you just have to apologize and everything's fixed. No, there are repercussions to the things you do. So, speaking of repercussions, how's the relationship between Anne and Hop Pop going right now? Just want to bring that up. So yeah, so the first trial they complete, like I said, were the lava centipedes. The second trial, a part of me was just sitting there watching, and I'm like, seriously? That easy? Because the trial was a bench press. And it's like, and you don't even have to do like multiple, you just had to do one. And by the looks of the bench, it didn't seem that big. I mean, maybe for a frog or a toad, especially in the conditions that they are, it might be heavy, but Sasha literally just goes in, lies down, and just boom, and the door opens. I'm like, okay. I mean, it would have been funny if that was the first trial. Like, that would make more sense in terms of, like, building up the madness, but at the same time, it's like you open with lava centipedes and then you go to a bench press. You kind of it does make you wonder what the third trial is going to be. And in terms of, well, the first temple, I guess, kind of had something similar to that, being like the second trial on that was you just had to land on 2 green tiles, so. But the third trial is where things really get crazy. So it's a battle against this giant monster who is in this leotard singlet. At first, by the way he was dressed, I thought this was going to be kind of like a wrestling match, like not like WWE, like actual wrestling. But as we find out rather quickly, it's not that simple. It's not just a straight up boss fight. In terms of just mono, like you just gotta fight it straight up. Because it turns out this monster has the ability to increase the gravitational force. And it sounds about what you would expect. The gang, like the Plantars and Grime, like the creature activates it and like immediately just hit the ground and they can't get up. And Sasha and Marcy, they push on, they are able to withstand the gravitational force, but then the frog does it, but then the monster does it again, and this time Marcy hits the ground, I guess, because, yeah, she technically, when given the strength level of the 3, she technically is the weakest. So she goes down and she can't keep moving, so it's down to Sasha and Anne, but eventually Anne and Sasha are they seemingly get hit by the next wave of it, and Sasha and Anne, of course, keep getting into an argument because, like I said before, Sasha said that she apologized, so why aren't they cool? It's like, Anne's like, it's not just, you can't just apologize for that, you have to, it's like, and it's not just for what you did at Toad Tower, it's what you've been doing nearly my whole life, you've been controlling, you know, so, basically, yeah, they just have they just have that moment, and obviously Sasha kind of understands it, you know, like, yeah, it's something that's been going on for a long time, and even though she technically did it, part of her, I mean, I don't know, it's interesting to think about this, because for me, you know, it's so easy to forget that they're kids. I mean, they're 13, and you think about what you were like in middle school. You think about what the things that you did. Think about the ways you acted. You kind of don't really look, I look back on some of the things I did, and I'm like, yeah, that was stupid, but it's like, I was younger. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't as smart back then. So I can see why they are really having to grow up in this situation and actually think about the big mistake, I wouldn't say the mistakes that they've done. I mean, they have made mistakes, but it's just the fact that not only is it been in this world of Amphibia, but it's also been in their home, back on Earth. It's like, what are the things that they've done back on Earth that could have repercussions on their own lives? It's like, it's really interesting because obviously there's a lot to it, so, but, they're interrupted by the monster who is increasing the gravity, and Anne and Sasha seemingly are done for, but then Anne tells Sasha that that she can do it, because the one thing that Sasha is always done is never give up. She always keeps going, and so this gives Sasha the encouragement to literally fight the gravitational force. I love this one. She rips off her cape and like the thing that was holding and part of her armor, and I love how it flies off, but then it just like the gravity takes hold and just like boom, like there's a crater. And then Sasha even like takes a knee and swipes out her sword, and that creates a crater. And so she keeps, and she's battling the gravity while also battling the monster. And eventually she just does this epic smite, and she slices the monster in half, and then the monster just like gives like this thumbs up, like, yeah, you defeated me, and then explodes in the lava. It's crazy. But yeah, so like I said before, the trials of the tower are both internal strength and external strength, because, you know, you gotta be strong enough to lift a giant hammer to kill some centipedes, bench press, but also you have to be strong enough internally to not give up and fight literally something that's keeping you down. I love that. I love that symbolism in that moment. It's like you literally are stuck on the ground and it's seemingly impossible for you to get back up, but if you keep fighting, you will get back up. It's just like, man, that's crazy. So yeah, they charge the final gem, and like for Marcy, Sasha's calamity powers are completely drained, but like I said before, Anne still has some. And so with that, the box is charged, and so Anne asks if they should open it, but Marcy, rather in a panic, says, no, we should take it back to King Andreas in Utopia, that way he can show us how to use it. And I'm like, yeah, there's definitely something going on. And I've said it before, you know, it makes sense because Andreas kind of has Marcy as his pawn because, you know, she landed in Utopia, she has known him for a while now, so it would make sense that Andreas has grown to know Marcy and knows how to use her like a pawn. And now we kind of do have our three-sided battle, like I said before, because Sasha of the three doesn't seem like she wants to go home, and seemingly doesn't want to go home either, but she is persistent on trying to get them back, and Marcy is, I don't know what she wants, really, because we don't know for sure. I mean, she is excited to go to these trials and, like, use and charge the gems, and obviously there's some, so she doesn't want to dis-sabotage, but there's obviously something going on, like, maybe she is more trusting of Andreas and wants to see what he's going to do with this. But I feel like there's something else going on. Like, I feel like True Colors is I mean, it's called True Colors for a reason. There's a lot more than just colors. There's But in terms of Sasha's True Colors, I guess, as they leave the temple and as they leave the temple and are getting ready to go, Grime pulls Sasha inside and says, remember what our goal is here. We have to gain their trust in order to get into Utopia. And so that of course, that's the main reason why Sasha and Grime even went to Anne and Marcy's, because they know that they're working with the king, so they figured if they could gain their trust, they can go into Utopia without any problems. And of course, knowing that there's gonna be some infiltration and eventually a invasion, so this is getting more and more like freaking Avatar's Ba Sing Se. Granted, in that one, you had Azula, Mei, and Ty Lee dressed up as Kyoshi warriors, and that was more of a surprise twist. Like, remember, like, it seems like everything's okay, but then they show up and it's like, oh, no. This one is more of like, you already know, they're not in Utopia. It's like, they are literally talking about going to Utopia, so you're just, so I love the idea of, like, for the audience to know that this whole thing is eventually gonna go to crap so quickly, so early, is pretty, yeah, it's pretty messed up. But I do like this. I do like after Grime tells Sasha about that, and he also mentions that this whole thing is set in motion and there's no way to stop it. So regardless of what's going to happen, regardless of what they do, this invasion is going to happen. So Sasha, I like this. Sasha does give a look of worry and confliction. Like, I can see that a part of her really wants to gain the friendship of Anne and Marcy the right way, but at the same time, she has this goal of helping these toads with the rebellion and stuff, and it's like, all right, this is gonna get interesting. This is gonna be interesting because we have our penultimate episodes next with the dinner and battle of the bands, and then we have True Colors, which comes out Saturday morning. So yeah. Kind of terrifying. So, in terms of this episode, I thought it was a really great episode. I thought for the Temple trilogy, they were all really, really good. I really liked how each one tested each of the main three girls really, really well, and how it kind of reflected their personalities, but also kind of showed how it wasn't more of like they were destined to be, it was destined to be these three specific girls, but it was more of like these three kind of people. Like, you know, you have someone who's really smart, you know, you have people who are really smart, but they do need to have humility. You have people who have a heart, who do have heart, but they also have but they know that they have to take responsibility. And then you have people who are very strong, both internally and externally. You know, there's someone who is able to keep going and never give up, and is able to overcome obstacles that for some people seem rather difficult or impossible. So I like that. I like how they each reflect their characters and how this is an interesting path we're going for, because again, I mean, in terms of where this can go, it really can go in any direction, because you can, again, I think there's going to be a season, season 3 has got to happen, so this is obviously going to be the dark ending, and it's going to leave a lot of things up to grass and up to question, so we have no idea where it's going to go. But again, we got to see what happens in the final episode before we can make our assumptions of where they'll go from there. But yeah, but we can't talk about the final episode just yet. We got to talk about Dinner and Battle of the Bands next, so we'll get to that. So thank you all for watching. If you liked it, leave a like. If you want to leave a comment, leave a comment. If you want to subscribe. I don't really care. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and we will see you in the next video.